Chapter 10. Echo Buried in Flame. The air thickened with ash as Amuro and Lyssa descended into the molten corridors beneath the world. The map etched into Lyssa's hand pulsed softly, guiding them through spiraling tunnels of blackened obsidian and cracked bones. This part of the dungeon, once sealed by flame and forgotten by time, pulsed now with life, not natural, but remembered. Remembered pain. Remembered fire. "The forge is near," Lyssa whispered, wiping soot from her cheek. "I can feel it humming, like it remembers us." Amuro didn't respond. His thoughts were focused, taut like a drawn string. The blade at his side, the revenant blade, had begun to flicker faintly, a reaction not of danger, but of anticipation. They passed ancient carvings embedded in the stone, images of warriors hammering blades under suns that no longer burned. One mosaic depicted a woman with 6 arms pouring molten echo into a dying god's mouth. "These aren't just forges," Amuro murmured. "They were altars." Lyssa nodded. "This is where memory was turned into metal." The corridor widened into a massive chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow, its floor ringed by lava streams that bubbled with ghost light. In the center stood an anvil the size of a carriage, and behind it, suspended in a cage of iron and bone, hovered the skeleton of a once-living creature, its skull encased in gold, its spine made of interlocked runes that writhed with unspoken heat. As they stepped inside, the creature stirred. "Another one wakes," it groaned. "What do you seek in the womb of fire?" Amuro stepped forward. "Power. A weapon that will endure memory and fire." The skeletal guardian rattled its ribcage, and the room responded, flames dancing upward, forming tendrils, curling like fingers ready to test them. "Then prove yourselves. Cast aside what you know. Forge what you fear. Fire the trial of the flame echo." Without warning, the walls ignited. Not with fire, but with memory made flame. Visions surged forward, past lives, false futures. Lyssa screamed as her reflection turned against her in a loop of fractured time. Amuro clenched his blade as 100 versions of himself stepped from the smoke, each one accusing, bleeding, dying. "You abandoned me," said one child Amuro. "You killed us," said the armored king version. "You forgot her," said the version holding a broken silver mask. He dropped to one knee, runes flaring, the revenant blade burning against the hallucination. But he didn't strike. Instead, he whispered, "I remember." The illusions flickered, then shattered. The flames receded. The guardian laughed, a sound like burning scrolls. "Good. You do not run from the fire. You become it." The central anvil glowed red, and a slab of molten ore emerged from the floor, echo-infused ingot, carved from the compressed screams of forgotten souls. Lyssa stepped forward, cutting her palm with a ceremonial shard. "We forged together," she said. Amuro pressed his hand over the hilt of his blade, channeling everything, pain, loss, memory, into the act. The forge came alive. Flames turned blue. Sparks danced like spirits. For the next hour, there were no words. Only hammer, steel, and the rhythm of something ancient and sacred. When it was done, Amuro held the blade aloft. It was no longer the revenant blade. It was something new. Flame resonator. A weapon attuned to echo itself. Capable of unraveling memory constructs, reflecting soul attacks, and igniting the forgotten within foes. But the cost was immediate. Amuro staggered. A hole opened in his mind, not deep, but precise. He could no longer recall his mother's voice. "It took something from you," Lyssa said softly. "Everything has a price," Amuro replied, steadying himself. The guardian dipped its skull. "You are marked now, not just by memory, but by fire. From here, the dungeon changes. It knows you forged something new. And it fears you." The anvil sank back into the earth. The path behind them collapsed in flames. Only one way remained, forward, toward something neither of them could name. The tunnel that opened beyond the forge was unlike the ones before. Gone were the rough-hewn stones and decaying walls, this corridor was smooth, carved by unnatural hands, and lit by veins of molten amber that pulsed like a sleeping heart. The temperature dropped, oddly, as they walked, not colder in air, but in presence. As though the fire had burned away more than heat, as though memory itself had been scorched into ash. Lyssa walked silently at Amuro's side, her expression unreadable, the fresh burn on her hand wrapped in strips of cloth torn from her cloak. They hadn't spoken since the forging. Some truths did not need air to breathe. "Do you think it'll hold?" she asked finally, nodding toward the new blade. Amuro looked down at the flame resonator. The weapon hummed faintly in response, pulsing like it recognized the path ahead. "It's not about holding," he answered. "It's about remembering." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "This blade is made from what I sacrificed. If it fails, it means I've forgotten again." They fell silent again. But something had changed. Between them. Around them. It wasn't just the dungeon that was watching now. It was the world. Cyclone Echo Rift Chamber. The passage split without warning, tearing sideways, reality warping like cloth pulled too tight. Ahead of them stretched a massive chasm, the floor invisible beneath thick fog and the sound of falling memories, literal echoes drifting upward like smoke. Bridges, made of broken words and flickering sound, formed and collapsed with every step. Lyssa hissed. "This is an echo rift. A pure one. How unstable." Amuro asked, already bracing himself. "If we fall, we might end up in a memory that doesn't belong to us. Or worse, one that wants us to stay." There was no other way forward. They moved. Each step triggered bursts of past moments, some theirs, some not. A crying child. A woman in chains. A dragon falling in slow motion. Amuro gritted his teeth as a vision seized him, a battlefield, his blade buried in a friend's chest, Lyssa screaming. "That never happened," he shouted. "It will," said the vision. He lunged, not at the image, but forward, out of the rift's trap. Lyssa followed close behind, flames gathering in her palms to burn through the threads of false memory. They landed hard on stone. Behind them, the echo rift collapsed into itself, leaving only silence. "That place wasn't just a rift," Lyssa said breathlessly. "It was bait." Amuro's voice was hoarse. "Something wanted us to look. Wanted us to stay. Brain rest and repair." They found a safe chamber, a collapsed library with a ceiling high enough to see stars that weren't there. Amuro dropped his gear and began the motions of setting camp, layering ash char to absorb ambient echo energy, lighting a rune glow for stability. Lyssa prepared food, a nutrient gel boiled from dungeon fungi and purified salts. It tasted like dust and regret, but it worked. "You lost something," Lyssa said, not looking up. "What makes you say that?" "You're quiet." "I've always been quiet. Not like this." Amuro hesitated. He set down his blade and stared into the flickering light. "I lost my mother's voice in the forge. I can't remember it anymore." Lyssa looked over, softer now. "I'm sorry." "I'm not. It means the blade's real." She leaned back, chewing thoughtfully. "The dungeon's adapting. Learning. That rift. It wasn't random." "I know," he said. "It's watching you. Let it watch." Suddenly, the ground trembled. Faint, like footsteps too large to belong to anything living. Both reached for their weapons instinctively. The glow from the rune dome began to dim. "Did you reset the cycle?" Lyssa asked. "Yes." "Then something's draining it." A whisper slithered through the air. Words neither of them recognized. Not language. Not sound. Just meaning, hollow and sharp. A new figure stepped through the veil of darkness beyond the rune light. Its body was stitched from old armor, bent metal, and bones. A mask made of cracked glass covered its face. On its chest, a single rune, burning, identical to the one on Amuro's hand. "What?" Lyssa whispered. "Is that another revenant?" Amuro stood slowly, blade drawn. "No. That's what happens when a revenant loses themselves." The thing raised its weapon. The campfire flickered out. The silence that followed was suffocating. Lyssa rolled sideways, conjuring a thin shield of shimmering flame just as the enemy revenant's blade came down. Sparks flew, but the creature didn't hesitate. It moved like it had fought this battle 1,000 times. "It knows your style," she shouted, backing away. Amuro didn't answer. His eyes locked with the figure's cracked glass mask. Behind it, he saw no face, Only light. Light shaped like ruin. The blade clashed again, this time with Amuro's. The flame resonator screamed. They danced between shadows and heat. Every movement the enemy made, Amuro recognized a fraction too late, like looking into a distorted memory of himself. This thing didn't just mimic him. It was him. Or a version of him that had surrendered to the dungeon. "What are you?" he snarled, barely parrying a blow that shattered part of the floor. The creature spoke at last. Its voice was his own, layered, echoing back through 100 tunnels. "I am the path you buried. I am what remains when you give up remembering." It lashed out with a hand, and runes burst from its palm, corrupted reflections of his own, blackened and trembling with static. Lyssa threw a vial that exploded midair, releasing a thick cloud of silver mist. The mimic staggered, hissing. "It's vulnerable to fractured echo," she yelled. Amuro nodded. He closed his eyes, focused, and dove forward. The clash was brutal. Steel met not just steel but soul. Their weapons didn't cut flesh, they cut memory. Amuro watched moments vanish, his childhood home, the taste of bread, his father's laughter. But the mimic lost something, too. It stumbled. Its stance broke. "I know who I am," Amuro whispered, and stabbed deep into its core. The blade ignited. The mimic screamed, and it wasn't rage. It was relief. It collapsed in a flash of light and ash, the glass mask shattering into dust. Beneath it, nothing. No body. Only a single rune, burned into the floor. Amuro dropped to one knee. His breath ragged. His hands shaking. Lyssa was already by his side, pressing a warm cloth to his forearm where black cracks had started to creep up his skin, backlash from the echo feedback. "You almost lost yourself," she murmured. "I saw what I could have become," he said. "No, what I was becoming. You're not him. Not yet." She looked at him, firelight in her eyes. "Then don't be." Wrench moments of recovery. Afterward, they reinforced their protective wards and stayed the night inside a forgotten alcove, a tomb of books and metal statues with blank faces. Amuro worked silently, reinforcing his armor using shards of the broken mimic's blade. The metal sang with familiarity, like it remembered him. Lyssa prepared a new tonic. This one glowed a soft blue. "Anti-echo distortion serum," she explained, handing him a dose. "Drink before sleep, or you'll dream things that shouldn't be dreamt." Amuro downed it. It tasted like ice and ash. "You're good at this," he said after a moment. "Surviving. Helping people not become monsters." She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, "I wasn't always." New moon beneath the silence. As they slept, the dungeon whispered. It remembered the mimic. It remembered the fire. And it learned. Deep beneath where they rested, something vast stirred, like a giant waking from centuries of thought. It did not speak in words. It moved in echoes. And somewhere, far ahead, a gate opened for the first time in an age. Not from within, but from the outside. Morning, or what passed for morning in the endless twilight of the dungeon, came not with light, but with motion. The ground trembled. Just once. Enough to shake dust from the stonework and send a small sculpture tumbling to the floor, shattering like brittle bone. Amuro and Lyssa were on their feet in an instant, weapons drawn. But there was no enemy. Only a presence. A low, humming pressure like sound without source. It vibrated in their chests. "It's shifting again," Lyssa said quietly. "No. Something's reaching out," Amuro whispered. He knelt, palm against the rune the mimic had left behind. It still pulsed faintly, not with life, but with memory. A message encoded in echo. His rune responded, glowing faintly. A connection sparked. Suddenly, the world tilted. A vision struck him. A citadel, buried in obsidian. A circle of stone giants arguing in silence. A woman made of mirrors, standing in a sea of forgotten names. And one word whispered in 1,000 voices. "Threshold." Amuro gasped, stumbling back as the vision shattered. Lyssa caught him, eyes wide. "What did you see?" "Something old. Something waiting." "The gate." "No. The thing behind the gate." hammer and wrench crafting before the descent. They couldn't press forward immediately. The mimic had damaged Amuro's soul thread, his rune flickered erratically. Without stabilization, it could rupture mid-fight, or worse, spiral into paradox. While Lyssa prepared a stabilizing focus, Amuro set to work reforging his gear. He took the mimic's broken mask and embedded it into his left gauntlet, letting it become a passive resonance field. Now, he could detect false echoes before they formed. He also extracted memory-charged ichor from the mimic's remains, mixing it with echo crystal dust Lyssa provided. The result was a memory bomb, a salve to restore clarity if the dungeon's illusions became too strong. Finally, he enhanced his revenant blade with a shard of a fractured time rune. It now shimmered faintly with an unstable light. "It won't last forever," Lyssa warned, watching the blade hum. "It doesn't have to," he replied. "Just long enough." Cyclone descent toward the threshold. The path ahead was wrong. Where stone should be, there was obsidian. Where torches burned, there were only hovering crystals pulsing in blue. The further they walked, the quieter everything became. Even their thoughts. "I can't remember the last song I heard," Lyssa murmured. "I can't remember my mother's voice," Amuro replied. They exchanged a glance. This wasn't just psychological manipulation. This was a threshold of identity. A veil between what was and what could still remain. And then they saw it. A monolith, not a gate in the traditional sense. It was a hovering obelisk of shattered time and folded memory, suspended over a spiraling abyss. Beneath it stood a single figure, cloaked in echo runes, barefoot, skin silvered, no face, only a mask made of shifting ink. "Is that?" Lyssa began. "A threshold keeper," Amuro said. The figure raised its hand, spoke in a voice that bent the walls. "One of you may pass. One must remain." Amuro and Lyssa froze. "Choose. What happens to the one who stays?" Lyssa demanded. "They become the seal." The silence stretched long. Amuro stepped forward. "No," Lyssa said sharply, grabbing his arm. "We don't know what's on the other side. If it's worse, you need to go. And leave you behind to, what? Fade. To hold the line." Their eyes locked, and in that moment, the dungeon waited. But before either could speak again, the monolith shimmered. The keeper turned, listening to something unheard. Its head tilted. Then it stepped aside. "Neither shall remain." "Why?" Amuro asked. "Because he has changed the rules." The dungeon trembled violently. The monolith cracked. Somewhere far behind them, they heard the impossible. Laughter. Something else had entered the dungeon. Not from above, but from outside the world. Chapter 10, End. The keeper had vanished. The monolith, still cracked and shuddering, hovering now just inches from the abyss, trembled like something holding its breath. Lyssa stood close to Amuro, eyes darting, breath tight in her chest. The echo runes on the walls flickered like dying stars. "That laughter," she said. "It wasn't human." "No," Amuro replied quietly. "But it knew us." They approached the edge. Below the monolith, the spiral abyss churned, not with shadow, but with colorless flame, as if memory itself were burning. In that depthless void, shapes moved, crawling along dimensions not meant to be seen. Something had entered the dungeon. Not summoned. Not born. Uninvited. "The rules are unraveling," Lyssa whispered. "Then we don't play by them anymore," Amuro answered, and stepped into the spiral. The monolith broke apart as he passed through, shattering into light. Lyssa followed. Their bodies flickered, then faded, like pages burning backwards into a book not yet written. Somewhere else, far beyond the walls of the dungeon, in the ruins of a forgotten temple, a crystal cracked. Dust rose. A sigil once sealed under 6 chains pulsed with red light. A voice, ancient, starved, stirred awake. "He's getting close." Another voice answered. "Then it's time to open the second gate."